Okay, I should just start by saying hello, Auntie. I think you're probably watching sometime in the future. My Auntie Elwyn in Perth. All right, let's turn to the book of Nehemiah in chapter 8. And we're going to read from verse 4. And Ezra the scribe stood upon a pulpit of wood. Pulpit you could read as stage, if you like. In fact, some translations do say stage, which they had made for the purpose. And beside him stood, here we go, Mattithiah, here we go, Shema and Ananiah and Uriah and Hilkiah and Maaseiah, and on his right hand, on his left hand, Pedaiah and Mishael and Malchiah and Hashem and Hash. I made a hash of this one. I was reading it out. It's Hashbadana, but I managed to read it out as both Hashbadana and Hashbandana. So I apologise to Hashbadana, Zechariah and Meshullam. I probably should have skipped them just for the sake of it, but I think that some of those names are fun. And Ezra opened the book in sight of all the people, for he was above all the people. And when he opened it up, all the people stood up. We'll go down to verse 8. So they read in the book, in the law of God distinctly, and gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading. This is when the people have sort of come back and they've started to build the wall and they've discovered the law. And I like how it said, he read out distinctly and they understood. He read it out so that they could understand what the law was required. That's not what I'm talking about. I want to go back to this stage thing that we were talking about. And when it says he was above all the people, it wasn't because he was this high and mighty godly man. He was literally above all the people because they built a big pulpit, a big stage for him to preach to the people. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the stage. Actually, I want to talk about the backstage. That's not much of a backstage, but let's not worry about that. When you hear the term backstage, you might think of a concert or a performance. I do. It's something that has a stage, and there's the back of that stage. It's literally where it is. It's the place, when you think about it, it's the place where things happen before a performance. There's equipment being handled in place, there's props perhaps being readied, lights and backdrops, cast and crew are sort of busying themselves getting things in order. You might have a stage manager there making sure everyone's in the right spot and everything's ready to go. People have mild panic attacks because they're about to go on stage and I don't know what's going to happen. Performers, sort of hang around there before they go. It can be organised chaos. It can also be a place that it's exciting. There's energy and excitement about being there because you're ready to do something. All this planning that we've gone, it's been planned, it's been rehearsed, it's expected. It's the Looney Tunes overture, hit the lights, this is it, the night of nights, no more rehearsing and nursing our parts. We know every part by heart, I'm not going to sing anymore. It's all about to happen. It actually, when you think of it, has great parallels with something we're expecting to happen sometime not far away, the return of the Lord, because the stage is set for that. So with that in mind, let's have a look at some roles we might have in the production of what we're about to do. I'll get you to turn to Revelation 22. Spoiler alert. In Genesis 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So, in the beginning, God set something up to happen. There's a long history. When we get to John 3:17, said, for God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. So we know that there's something that's to happen. Jesus has come for all the world to be saved. And now we're in we're in Revelation 22. We managed to get Genesis to Revelation in before the third paragraph. Verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his work, as his work shall be. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they might have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. Now, obviously we've skipped a whole bunch of things if you read in chapter 21 about the New Jerusalem, what is to come, the return of the Lord, the performance, the end-all performance, if you like. It's going to be a big thing, and we're all part of getting that ready to happen. Imagine probably quite a few people have been involved in a production of some sort along the lines. It might have been Don't Knock Noah, it might have been something you did at school. I remember being a sheep in my kindergarten end of year thing. I don't remember anything else about it other than having to wear cotton wool. It's probably my best performance as well. But in some capacity, we've probably been involved in something. Maybe you want to bring it down to a smaller scale and you've set up the meeting, or you've done something to set up the meeting. We're still getting ready for something, and you know there's work that gets involved in it. Before you reach the backstage area of a bigger production, there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. There's planning things, there's documenting things, there's changing it on the fly because this is not going to work and this person can't come and we have to fit it in a better way. There's meetings that happen, there's preparation, there's catering, there's transport, there's practicing, there's a lot of things. And when you sort of stop to think about it, there is a lot of things. It means there's a lot of work to do. It means there's a lot of people that need to do the work. It really does sort of reflect our walk in the Lord. So I'll give a practical example. I thought I'd use something that, well, personally I was involved in, but I know a number of people in Victoria were involved in the 2017 Geelong Convention. Some of you are very familiar with things that happen behind the scenes in order to make that happen. I know that all the Victorian fellowships had a role when Pastor Scott stood up on the stage at the convention before and said, "Oh, we'll do it," without having any idea of what was going to happen and be involved. But that's all right. I know Ballarat were instrumental in feeding everyone on that Monday. You don't need me, who were involved, to tell you what happened. It's the loaves and the fish special, I think, that somehow fed the multitudes. But it all came together and it all worked. It was a cold, windy day. It's the kind of stories, isn't it, that your grandparents tell you about how they used to go to school in the snow and the cold and the wet, and it was uphill both ways, here and back, and all the things. There was a lot of work, but it was good work. So I want to show you a few pictures. Wink. To show you something that goes on behind the scenes. Now, there you go, that's Pastor William, the late Pastor William, unfortunately, from Bali. You go back a long way to getting him set up. I remember the meeting he came and received the Holy Spirit in the Ashburton Library, and when he was baptised. I remember being at his wedding and then seeing this guy grow into, having to go back to Bali and then grow into the pastor, the leads fellow. It was great. That whole big thing that he went through. No, you probably can't, you might not see it there, but if we go to the next one, that little circled thing there, that's the top of Linda's saxophone. We'll go to the next one. I guarantee you probably can't see it there, but if you click the next one, in there is my guitar. Not that guitar. I had a different guitar, which I sold to buy that one. But for me, that was part of the effort that I put in, because we were both up on the stage playing in the band. It's a lot of lot of work going into that, and that's just me personally. We'll go to the next one. That's, you might play a bit of Spotto there. You can probably see Pastor Roland. I think sitting next to him is David Elliott. Just Pastor Steve Carr at the podium. You can see various people feel like they were looking at me. Pastor Mark Wickstein's back there, and I feel like he was looking at me taking a picture, and the person next to him, I don't know. But that was behind the scenes. That was off to the side of the stage that we saw just before, because things were happening and people needed to be different places. And just to get that lot of pastors on the stage, Pastor Rob could probably go, there's a lot of seats, there's a lot of people that need to get things and usher people, and they're not always the fastest moving people, so to get them all there at the same time. The next one, you can probably recognise some people in there. I think you can see Liam, you can see Jan. Down the bottom in the white shirt, I think you can see the back of Mark Caruana's head. I suppose it could have been Pastor John, but I think it's Mark. And that's them just before bringing out the communion to the meeting. So, there was a lot of things happening to get, to make things run smoothly, to make the meetings run well. I don't have pictures of the thing, but what you don't see behind the stage from when you're sitting in the audience is the desk full of computer equipment that was streaming the concert before Zoom. Like, I don't know. Now you just plug it in, you put an address in, and it just magic happens. But then you had to do a whole lot of stuff, and there was a couple of the brothers from Adelaide just constantly doing whatever they did. It felt like a lot of work. There was, organising to get things on the projector when the person said next. It's easier said than done. There's coordination with the AV people who are at the back of the hall, but they couldn't do things in the back of the hall other than this. There needed to be people running around with microphones and headsets going, I need to put this here and turn this up. Oh, this isn't working, we've got to plug this in. Things you don't see. There was a green room out off the side, so people who were coming up for items or to give their testimony had somewhere to sit and have their panic attacks and their whatever, as we said before. There were instruments scattered around the place because various different people doing things. There was ushering. There was Pastor Steve probably nervously counting down the time that people had left to speak, like when Pastor Godfrey gets up and time is not the concept for him. I think there was some people doing security as well. Simply put, there are a lot of people doing a lot of things that a lot of people didn't see to make the convention work. So I've broken this down, drawing it sort of similar to ourselves, to some headings. I've put some semi-alliterative headings so they're easier to follow. We've got people, we've got competence, and we've got practice. It's a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to do that. So let's turn to Ephesians chapter 4. Because without the people, there is no production. There's nothing to put on, there is nothing to see. And it's the effort of the people, if you like, the fellowship, God's church. It's the effort of people that do things that make the production. And it's not all about seeing what's on stage, but it is about having the right attitude to serve and be part of it and seeing, the end result. Because what you don't see is the time people spend travelling there, but we know they did it. We all probably did it. There's time people spend on presentations. There's hours, I can tell you, there's hours of rehearsal that the band put in to get things like we had music that stretched this far before the choruses started. We had like 5-6 pages just spread out that it was a super medley. I think we had 3 or 4 of them. And that's just what I know. There was other things happening as well. There's the early morning arrival to set things up and get it there. There was, all the behind-the-scenes admin work that I know Pastor Steve put in, sort of project managing everything. There was cleaning stuff up. There's lots of things. And I think the best thing of all is if you didn't notice it, it meant it worked. Because it's not about, people weren't... Pastor Steve wasn't putting his time and effort into, project managing that thing for the recognition. He did it for the love of the Lord. And that's what we've got to make sure that we're doing. And I think we do. You give your time freely, you give, the capacity, the expertise that you might have in the natural to make a thing work for the benefit of the others, as the Lord has given us these things. So Ephesians 4, verse 1. I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavouring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, even as you are called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. But unto every one of us is given grace according to the measure of the gift of Christ. Wherefore he said, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Now that he ascended, I'm going to skip down to verse 11. He gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and pastors and teachers for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ. Go down to verse 16. From whom the whole body is fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, makes increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. It's a lot of concepts to get your head around, but simply put, when we all work together, we all work together. It all just comes together. It all works. It's done through the Lord. Chapter 5 and verse 30 says, for we are members of his body, his flesh, and of his bones. We're all part of this together. The people who make up the body of Christ, the people who make up, if you like, the team getting the production ready for when the Lord returns. Because the Lord's not returning for no one. He's coming back for those who he's called. He's coming back for those who are, are saved, are the elect of God, those who are spirit-filled according to his word. He's coming back for us. He's coming back for all of those who follow it. Without the people, there is no production. Without the people, there is nothing to put on. Without the people, there is no effort. So we've got to be those people. Let's turn to 2 Timothy. Competence. In order to do your job, to fulfill your role, if you like, you need to be competent in what you do. You don't just walk down, outside of Her Majesty's Theatre or something and they're putting a production on there. You need to come and just get a dance on the stage for a little bit. And you do the same thing, just follow him. We need you to, can you just play in the band? Or can you just do the lighting? You need to have the skills to do it. Now we have the spirit, we have the skills that we need to walk in the Lord and to be that person for the Lord. He's equipped us, he's given us what we need. Just as you need to know what you're doing in the backstage, where things go, how things work, if something doesn't work, how to fix it, how to get around it, who to call in an emergency, how to use your skills to go, I can get around this problem by doing this or this. We have the Spirit in this, that we might know what to do, that we might not be lacking with anything. Let's 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. We know this one. Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Verse 16. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more godliness. So we know what is the right thing to do. And we also know that the right thing to do is to get rid of the wrong things, the things that don't benefit, the things that don't help, to put away what is not beneficial to us and just walk in what is right. Chapter 3, verse 17, I'm going to read this out of the Amplified, says, so that the man of God may be complete and proficient, well fitted and thoroughly equipped for every good work. In the King James it says, thoroughly equipped for every good work. There's that word, I've given a talk on that before. That means it's right within you. Not just doing a great job, being that great job and living that great job. In 1 Timothy, while we're in the neighbourhood, chapter 3, from verse 1 says, this is a true saying, if a man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behaviour, given to hospitality, apt to teach, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetous, one that rules well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride he fall into the condemnation of the devil. So it says here about the qualities that we must have, but also not a novice. You don't go doing things you aren't equipped to do. You don't go, you will not be put in a position to do something that you aren't able to do. I'm talking about, the bishop, the pastor, the overseer, they will know how to look after their house, after the church, and they also know who is capable to do a thing. But also, if you really want to be able to do a thing, that will help you to learn and to grow and to understand it and to be able to do that. So it's a good work to be involved in, and it's a good work to serve and to do it with all the capability that you have and wanting to do it. Studying to show yourself approved that you can do it. And I've learnt how to do this, and I have the confidence to go do this. I have the testimony, or I know of a testimony that is of a healing that person I spoke to needed. I know I have the ability to help out in a certain place because I have a willingness to do it, and I'm happy to learn, I'm happy to help out, and I'm happy to be part of what we are and what we stand for. Let's turn to 2 Corinthians in chapter 3. Verse 5 says, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God, who also made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit gives life. All right, that's not our sufficiency. We may have all the brains in the world. We may know, we may be able to get a rocket to the moon, but we're not called to get a rocket to the moon. The Lord's going to do that when he returns. We're going to go up. We're just called to put our effort in with what we've got, as the Lord has given us sufficiency as unto him. We don't need to be rocket scientists. We don't need to be brain surgeons. We don't need to be rocket surgeons. We just need to put our effort into the Lord with what we've got as what he's given us, and we see the increase and we see the blessing. And we need to practice it. We need to make sure that we're keeping our skills up and keeping I'm going to mix my metaphors here. Keeping our toe in the water, keeping our foot in the door, making sure that we still know what we're doing. Luke chapter 11. We need to be prepared because we've been given a role in the church. We've been given a role backstage. We all have something to do. Might be pulling on a rope. Might be moving a chair. It might be out the front leading the choruses. It might be giving the next talk. It might be giving your testimony. You might be called upon to help out with a baptism. We're all equipped to do this because the Lord's given us that, but we need to be ready to do it. If we do nothing, we'll miss out on the performance. We'll miss out when the lights go on, the curtain goes up, and the Lord returns, and we've just been sitting around not doing what he's given us to do. Luke 11, verse 28. "You rather blessed are they that hear the word of God and keep it." And keep it. What does keep it mean? It means to hold it close, to mean it's precious to us. Do something about it. Let's go to Romans chapter 12. Starting in verse 9, it says, "Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave unto that which is good. Be kindly affectioned to one another with brotherly love, in honour preferring one another, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of the saints, given to hospitality. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not the high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lies within you, live peaceably with all men. Verse 21, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. I've got scribbled in my margin, being Christ-like and overcoming. That's what we've got to practice, doing the right thing to people. I like that. It says, blessed to hear the word and keep it. I put that in bold in my notes here because we've got to keep it, we've got to do it. Let's turn across to chapter 15. Romans, verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbour for his good to edification. For even Christ pleased not himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of men that reproached thee fell on me. He took our burden. He took our sin. He took our sorrow. He took all the places that we were going, all the wrong things that we had done before we knew him. He took them upon himself and he wiped the slate clean. That's pretty good. That's what we've got to do. We've got to see that example, follow that example, put that to good use in what we're called to do. And don't turn to it. In 2 Peter 1, verse 10 says, wherefore the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fall. We've got a role, as I said, backstage at the greatest performance. We're there waiting for it to happen. We're all ready to go. We know what we're doing. We're well equipped. We're the people with the competence and the practice to make it happen. We have the skills to be there. We have the know-how. We've got the capacity because the Lord's given it to us. He hasn't left anything out. Whatever we need, he'll give it to us. He has given it to us. We got it, but we do have to put the effort in too. We can't just show up and expect it to happen around us. Even as we're here today, because this is what is good for us, to be involved in the fellowship. Because, as we said at the start, there is an excitement around things when it starts to happen, when it's getting closer. Excitement may not be the word the world uses for events these days. But there is things happening. There's revival waiting to be had. We see it, and hopefully we'll see more. But we won't see more unless we are part of the production, unless we're actually doing the things that we're called to do. Being involved, working together, being full of the Spirit and using the Spirit in our lives. And when the curtain goes up, we're going to enjoy the show. Amen.